material things we chase, the accolades we achieve, and even the relationships we cherish are all subject to change. We desire destinations on dead-end roads. Everything we see, touch, and strive for is like smoke in the wind, escaping our grasp no matter how tightly we try to hold on. But there's one constant, one unshakable foundation amidst the temporary. A source of strength, a giver of lasting purpose, and an anchor that holds steady. And a hope that endures forever.
Well, good morning. Hey, I had this thought during that last song of how many times when we are praying to the Lord do we say, "Why are you so good to me?" But I think many of us, we find ourselves saying all the time, "Why aren't you more good to me?" And if we sit down long enough, if we ponder long enough, and if you think about the prayers God has already answered, the provision He has already provided, that our prayers would be filled with more of, "Why are you so good to me?" Because we don't worship Jesus for saving us from our suffering. We worship Jesus for saving us from our sin. And He's done that. And we're not non-deserving, we are ill-deserving. And he chose to rescue us and save us, and we get to spend eternity with Him. If we get that, I think our prayers would be more of, "Why are you so good to me?" I can't explain it, but thank you. But thank you. With that said, we are continuing our series through this book, Ecclesiastes. It's a great book, isn't it? It's such a good book. It's so incredibly insightful. It is so incredibly honest. Solomon doesn't sugarcoat anything, which is good for us, I think, as a people, especially in America. Last week, if you remember, Solomon kind of zooms into a specific area. We dealt with wisdom and knowledge. And we said that wisdom and knowledge, pursuing that, it's a good thing. But if you pursue just that under the sun, and under the sun means without God, without connection to God, without any revelation from God, any wisdom and knowledge pursued in and of itself will lead to absolute despair, and there are some tragic limitations that apart from the knowledge of Jesus, according to Colossians, all the hidden treasures of wisdom and knowledge are found in the person of Jesus Christ, Colossians 2. So with that said, knowledge without the knowledge of Jesus, it is futile. Like, we will never know enough. You'll never be wise enough. As he said last Sunday, the crooked will never be made straight. What is lost will never be found. What is lacking will never be filled. That pursuing wisdom and knowledge on its own, alone, without God, will lead you to despair. And it is very, very limited. So today, in the same vein, Solomon zooms in on a different topic. He zooms in on this topic of pleasure. That pleasure, like wisdom and knowledge, are not bad, but pleasure being pursued as an end under the sun without God, it has its tragic limitations. So here's what I want to do. I want to read the whole passage, chapter 2, verses 1 through 11, then we'll go through it line by line. This is the word of God. These are the words of Solomon. He said, "I said in my heart, 'Come now, I will test you with pleasure. Enjoy yourself.' But behold, this also was vanity. I said of laughter, 'It is mad,' and of pleasure, 'What use is it?' I searched my heart, how to cheer my body with wine, so maybe the liquor cabinet will do it. My heart's still guiding me with wisdom. and how to lay hold on folly, till I might see what was good for the children of man to do under heaven during the few days of their life. I made great works. I built houses and planted vineyards for myself. I made myself gardens and parks and planted in them all kinds of fruit trees. I made myself pools from which to water the forest of growing trees. I bought male and female slaves, more than any who had been before me in Jerusalem. I also gathered for myself silver and gold and the treasure of kings and provinces. I got singers, both men and women, and many concubines, the delight of the sons of man. So I became great and surpassed all who were before me in Jerusalem. Also, my wisdom remained with me. Verse 10, just imagine this statement. Whatever my eyes desired, I did not keep from them. I kept my heart from no pleasure, for my heart found pleasure in all my toil. He's saying, I wasn't lazy, I did work hard, and this was my reward for all of my toil. Then I considered all that my hands had done, and the toil I had expended in doing it, and behold, all was vanity, all was a goose chase without a goose, all was me trying to gather a wind collection. It was meaningless. There was nothing to be gained under the sun. Under the sun. There's those three key words again. So today, Solomon hits on something that I think we all deal with. Earthly pleasure. Earthly pleasure. And let me say this before we delve into this passage. When it comes to pleasure, I think we can mistakenly fall into two unhealthy ditches. Ditch number one is called hedonism. It is all about pleasure. It's America. This is where pleasure is the ultimate end for your life. This is how you determine what to do, is whatever gives you the most pleasure. This is how you determine what is right or what is wrong. There is no right or wrong. It's whatever gives you the most pleasure. And we can all sit here, we can imagine the kind of havoc that would bring on your life if what dictated what we did and what we said was right or wrong is based on how much pleasure it gives you. I know so many people, some of you know people that have absolutely shipwrecked their lives because their lens was whatever gives me the most pleasure, that I will do. If it feels good, then it must be good. Hear me. Just because it feels good, it doesn't mean it is good. Especially young people, hear me. Just because it seems good, it doesn't mean it is good. But this is a cultural climate that we are living in, is if it feels good, if it gives you pleasure, then go for it. I can't judge you because what gives you pleasure may not be the thing that gives me pleasure. So you do you and I'll do me. But whatever gives you that joy and dopamine and oxytocin and all those hits, go for that. That is, by the way, what the Church of Satan literally believe. We have this wrong conception that they're all about us wearing black hoods and sacrificing babies around a star around a circle. I'm sure there's some of that. But their main objective, according to their PR person, is we just want you to do whatever you want to do. So if it makes you feel good, then go for it. Sounds good to me. Sounds like America to me. Whatever feels good, then please do it. And here's the sad part. This even bleeds into the church. Where there's this watered down, limp-wristed, no courage preaching, because ultimately we want you to feel good. We want you to be comfortable. So we'll never offend you. You'll never be convicted. We'll just talk about how God loves you, and you don't need to change anything in your life, and you go straight to hell. Because that's a false gospel. It bleeds into the church. I would even submit further, I think the prosperity gospel is kind of Christianized hedonism, where there's a giver and his main objective in your life is to give you things that give you pleasure. And so you don't worship the giver, you worship the gift from the giver, and once the gift stops, the worship to the giver stops too. It's asinine. But it's all about you and what makes you feel good. And even your spiritual maturity is really based on how much stuff you have acquired. Because you have more stuff, that means God must have blessed you more than this Yahoo who doesn't have as many stuff as you do. I'm seeing this. On the other side, ditch number 2 is what we'll call asceticism. This is where all pleasure is bad. These are the monks who go to a convent and live in the woods by themselves. These are the mystics. These are the people who take vows of poverty, or they swear off ever getting married. That, hear me, to be godly, it's you really shedding off all things that give you pleasure. That's how you know you're holy. The more miserable you are, the holier you are. And I would say amongst Christians, if there was a ditch that I think Christians are prone to fall into, it's not ditch number 1, I think it's ditch number 2. Because we learned this, once you become a Christian, it's like you have to give up all these things. Like God is this cosmic joy suck in your life. You got to give up all these things, that being a Christian is not doing these things and staying away from those things and doing those things. I can prove to you that I'm a Christian because here's my list. Here's my list. And if we're not careful, we can read passages like today wrongly. Last week, I think we all agreed, and it's proven in Proverbs, that pursuing wisdom and knowledge, it's a good thing. I don't encourage that. But pleasure, no. Pleasure is bad. Stay away from pleasure. Shed yourself like a Buddhist monk of all pleasure. I would submit pleasure is essential. I'd submit that God has built us to experience pleasure. I'd submit that it is pleasure that also protects us. Like if we touch something hot, that was not pleasurable. You eat something rotten, that did not taste pleasurable at all. So it even protects you. But like wisdom and knowledge, what Solomon is trying to get at is pursuing pleasure by itself as an end to itself under the sun is also, it has its tragic limitations, and you will end up in despair, and you will end up with that same void that you've always had, pursuing pleasure on its own. And I'll say this very practically in good, well-intentioned Christians, especially young people. They'll come and say, hey, Pastor Frank, I got this, I have these 2 job opportunities or 2 opportunities, and I'm trying to figure out like which one God wants me to do. And hear me, it's not like this one is a sinful one, this one is a not, like they're both great. And then I'll say to them, if I know them, if I know they love the Lord, they're following and pursuing the Lord, I'll say something to the effect of, I think God's asking you, what do you want to do? Like, what do you want to do? And the response that I will get often is, well, I really want to do this, but I'm wondering, is that just my flesh talking? Because surely God surely He wouldn't want you to enjoy something. And surely He wouldn't want you to pursue something you want to do. You see, I mean, the Bible does say, delight in the Lord and He will give you the desires of your heart. Am I saying don't pursue God? For sure. But there comes a certain point where like God's like, hey, I know I love you. I know you love me. And these sound great. Like, what do you want to do? Because if I really want it, surely that can't be from God. I must not want it, and that's the one I should take. Some of you should say, ouch. Because that's how you operate. Pleasure, bad. Suffering, displeasure, good. That's why you have no friends. Because nobody wants to hang out with you. Because God would never want you to enjoy things, right? I think our God is a great Father. I think He loves His children. I think He wants His children to enjoy the things that He gives. So let's dig in line by line. Ecclesiastes chapter 2, verse 1. Solomon, I said in my heart, come now, I will test you with pleasure. Enjoy yourself, but behold, this is all vanity. I would submit to you that we live in a nation where our Declaration of Independence says that we are called to pursue what? Happiness. Happiness. And compared to other nations, I think America, we're great. Like, I love this nation. I think we have opportunities. I think it's awesome. I think our quality of life is better than most. But I think our contentment in life seems to be worse. People are still depressed, anxious, stressed out in the most prosperous nation in the world. And hear me, some of you, if you're really honest, may be tempted to think something to the effect of, but Frank, if I just had half of what Solomon had, I know it's not about stuff, but man, I think it'd be really nice. I think it would resolve a lot of the issues in my life. Like, if I had a bigger house, because our house is tiny and our family can't really, like, if I had the house, I really think it would solve a lot of the issues. If I had a nicer car, if I had a different wife or a different husband, because Solomon had 1,000 to choose from, I just have that one lady for the rest of my life. If they're not laughing, spouse, we're talking about you. So laugh. Just laugh. Fake it, please. But if I just had half of what Solomon had, then Frank, I think I'd be more satisfied. In addition, let me say this. I think many of us spend much of our lives fearing that something we hate will destroy us. When in reality, the truth is, it is more likely that something you love will destroy you and not something you hate. Right? Pleasure, work, money, stuff, promotion, whatever that is, we start thinking that is the solution to satisfy my soul, and you put it in a spot it's not built to be in, and you're miserable. Solomon, as we've been talking about his life, this dude ruled with absolute power and absolute authority, and there was no gap between his desire and reality. Most of us, if not all, we can't fathom that kind of life. That whatever I want, I can have. Whoever I want, I can have. And Solomon says 39 times in this book, Hebel, 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 meaningless, vanity, it's a vapor, it's a wind, it's gone, it's a goose chase without the goose at the end of that chase. That's what he's saying. That life lived under the sun, without the Lord, without His presence, it is meaningless. And we in America, we try to pursue all these things under the sun to make some meaning in this meaningless life, and it fails every single time. But we never seem to learn our lesson. We do the same thing over and over again, expecting different results this one time. And you're still dissatisfied. So Solomon if you read this, he starts with the conclusion. He's like, I've tried to do pleasure, it's all vanity. And then thankfully, Solomon doesn't just say pleasure in general, he starts showing us all of his work. he shows us his thought process. He goes down a list of things like, I've tried pleasure. Let me be more specific. Here are the pleasures that I've tried to reach this conclusion. Number one, he was like, I've tried laughter. Verse 2, I said of laughter, it is mad, and of pleasure, what use is it? Solomon's like, I have laughed. Like, I can summon the best court jester to my palace, and they could make me laugh. Hear me, I think laughter is awesome. I think we should laugh a lot more. Like, I think we take ourselves way too seriously, and we take God not too seriously enough. I think laughter is a great thing. It's a great way to kind of get some relief from a stressful day. It's a good diversion. I remember 2020, 2021, 2022, 2023, when everybody was woke and nobody was awake and everybody was being canceled and everybody was afraid to say things. It was the stand-up comics that, at least for me, they were kind of a breath of fresh air. Like, thank you for saying what everybody is afraid to say, but you could hide it under the guise of comedy, right? It was a breath of fresh air. I love to laugh. I would argue that the best sound in the world is a belly laugh of a little baby. It's so infectious. But I don't care what day you're having or how bad of a day it is, like, at least for a minute, you hear a belly laugh of a little baby, that should put a smile on your face, even if it's just for a little bit. So laughter is a good thing, but he's saying it's not enough to add meaning to your life. And what's interesting is you think about this, some of the most famous comedians who their life mission was to make other people laugh, you realize they had the darkest soul, and some of them actually take their own life. That laughter, hear me, can be a good relief from life, but it will never add meaning to your life. That's what Solomon is saying. That laughter is a great thing, but it cannot be the main thing for you. Solomon says, I've tried laughter. How about wine? I had the best liquor cabinet. Verse 3, I searched with my heart how to cheer my body with wine. My heart's still guiding me with wisdom. He's not getting like just passed out drunk. He's still working with wisdom and how to lay hold on folly till I might see what was good for the children of man to do under heaven during the few days of their life. Solomon's saying, I've tried alcohol. I've tried wine. I've tried the choicest of wines. Hear me, it's Solomon. So here's what I do know. He never drank boxed wine. Solomon had the nicest aged bottles of wine. That's Solomon. He's saying, I had all of that. And people are stressed. People are going through a lot, so they'll gather with friends and they'll have a few drinks. And from the outside looking in, it looks like, man, they look like they're having a great time. It looks like there's not a trouble in their mind. They're having a blast, and all the trouble seems like it all went away. Just to give you an idea of what kind of life Solomon had, 1 Kings 10:21. All of King Solomon's drinking cups were solid gold. What are your cups made out of? IKEA? Like, what are they made out of? As were all the utensils in the palace of the forest of Lebanon. Where do you get your forks from? Solomon gets them from the forest of Lebanon. They were not made of silver. Silver was considered worth. Could you imagine someone's like, here's a ton of silver. You're like, no thanks. I'm good. But this is Solomon drinking not boxed wine from a vessel that is made of not plated gold like poor people, solid gold. This was Solomon's drinking vessel. I mean, he's saying, I drink all of it. And hear me, we can eat and we can drink to the glory of God, but when you don't, you can get addicted. It could be a bad thing. And we don't have time to go into this in detail. Is alcohol a sin? It's not. Okay? No matter what your fundamental friends tell you, the people that put mental and fundamental, who are no fun, alcohol in and of itself is not sin. Now, for some of you, it is, because you know your proclivities. Don't make a brother stumble. Don't get drunk. Yes. But here, you notice Solomon said, I try to cheer my body with wine, my heart still guiding me with wisdom. That means Solomon, he wasn't being foolish, but maybe he was going to this wine to maybe give him some meaning. And he's saying, that didn't work either. And some of you, this is your issue. You go to the bottle, and maybe you're not getting drunk. Maybe there's moderation, but maybe you're finding yourself going to the bottle instead of going to the Holy Spirit. Like your bottle is where you get stress relief. Your bottle is the one, but you're not getting drunk, and that's how you've been justifying for years. But it's become the thing, and you're thinking that's going to give you meaning. And Solomon is saying, dude, I had the best stuff in the best vessel, and the answer is no. It's no. Still didn't do it for me. All right, so if that doesn't work, what about real estate? Verse 4 through 6, I made great works, I built houses, and I planted vineyards for who? For myself. I made myself gardens and parks and planted in them all kinds of fruit trees. He had orchards. I made myself pools from which to water the forest of growing trees, because they're in the desert. So like Solomon, I'll just build a pool, not to swim in, to water all of these things. So Solomon built palaces and national parks and vineyards and orchards for who? For myself. Some of you would be grateful for a great backyard. I don't care how nice your house is. Go outside and ask yourself, do you have a national park in your backyard? You don't. Solomon had multiple gardens, orchards. Think about this. Solomon took 13 years to build his own house. Solomon took 7 years to build the temple where God's presence dwelt. So it is very possible that Solomon's dwelling was a lot fancier than God's dwelling. It took 6 more years to build his house than God's house. So imagine having your own park, your own national park, your own personal garden, your own vineyard, your own orchard. Here's the kicker. And you don't have to manage it, because you have 30,000+ employees that work for you, so you can just enjoy it and manage none of it. This was Solomon. And you think about this today, we have HGTV, we have landscaping magazines, we have home and garden conventions, we have all these things, how to remodel a house, how to remodel your kitchen, how to remodel your landscape. And I believe all of this is fueled because we were kicked out of a garden and we've been itching to get back. That's America. I want my own version of Eden, but we'll never get it. Imagine you had this kind of real estate, this kind of land, that kind of just income to dispose on whatever you wanted, and he's asking, would you be satisfied? Solomon says, no. No. So laughter didn't do it, wine didn't do it, real estate didn't do it. What about servants for yourself, for anything and everything? What about that? Verse 7, I bought male and female slaves and had slaves who were born in my house. Like Solomon didn't have to do anything. He had someone to do anything and everything at his beckoning call. So when our kids, especially Ruthie, she will make me, she'll make me do things for her. And when I bring it to her, she'll say, thank you, Butler. just like that, like a terrorist. Like, thank you, butler. And it's like, but you can have somebody do anything and everything for you, and they cannot say no to you. Look at what 1 Kings 4, 22, 23 say. Solomon's provision for one day, this is daily, okay, it's going to blow your mind, was 30 cores of fine flour, 60 cores of meal, 10 fat oxen, 20 pasture-fed cattle, 100 sheep, besides deer, gazelles, roebucks, and fattened fowl. This was Solomon's daily food requirement. One day. Scholars agree that this was enough to feed anywhere between 10,000 to 30,000 people one day. Daily. I mean, he had 30 plus thousand employees or servants at his beck and call. So we in America, in many ways, on a much smaller scale, I mean, we also have our own army of service. They used to have people to wash his gold vessels. Now we have dishwashers. We have dryers and washers. We have refrigerators. We have an entire service industry out there. So the question is, just try to go there. What if there's no limit for you, friend? To people you could hire to do only what you want them to do at all times. And Solomon's saying, would that make your life meaningful? Solomon says, also no. Also no, because I had that. What about livestock? He goes on. Verse 7, I also had great possessions of herds and flocks, more than anybody who had been before me in Jerusalem. Like, I had the most. And back then, how you judge someone's wealth is based on how much livestock you had, because it was food and it was transportation. Solomon had his own zoo. 1 Kings 4 says he had 4,000 stalls just for his chariot horses. He had 12,000 riding horses. 1 King 10 says he had 1,400 chariots or cars in today's world. And these horses weren't janky horses. These were horses imported from fancy Egypt. Solomon, hear me, if you do the math, he could ride a different horse every day for 32 plus years. This is his fleet. And again, and you don't even have to pick up the stuff they leave behind. Like, you enjoy all of it, taking care of none of it, because you have 30,000 people to do what you need them to do. He had 1,400 different cars. Any car guys? Okay. Just imagine 1,400 different antique, vintage, expensive cars, and he had the palaces to fit them in his palace. Just at your disposal, 1,400. Solomon's saying, would that satisfy you? Would that give you meaning to your meaningless life? Solomon says, again, even this, no. 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 How about money? I mean, money, right? Like, that solves things. That resolves, some of you guys inside, you're like, yes, go there. Money fixes a lot of things. And some of you are thinking, if I just had more money, I don't need the gold-plated, gold solid vessel. I just need more money. Verse 8, I also gathered for myself silver and gold and the treasures of kings and provinces. So imagine this, Solomon never needed a budget. He never operated out of a budget because he is worth $2.1 trillion. In 1 Kings 10, it says that Queen Sheba comes to him and gifts him 9,000 pounds of gold. 1 Kings 10, 14 through 20. just to give you an idea of how much money this dude had. Each year, Solomon received about 25 tons each year of gold. That is 50,000 pounds of gold every year. This did not include the additional revenue he received from merchants and traders, all the kings of Arabia, and the governors of the land. King Solomon made 200 large shields of hammered gold because he had too much to do. It's like, let's make shields. Each weighing more than 15 pounds. He also made 300 smaller shields of hammered gold, each weighing 4 pounds. The king placed these shields in the palace of the forest of Lebanon, where he gets his forks from. Then the king made a huge throne. Just look at this throne, decorated with ivory, overlaid with fine gold. This throne had 6 steps and a rounded back. There were armrests on both sides of the seat, and the figure of a lion stood on each side of the throne. There were also 12 other lions, one standing on each end of the 6 steps leading to this throne. No other throne in all of the world could be compared with it. I mean, it makes every hip-hop video look like peasants. Just gold vessel, 6 steps to his throne, lions leading up to that throne. He had 500 shields made of hammered gold to hang them on their wall. Some of you men, you have a man cave. Let me ask you this. Do you have 500 hammered shields hanging on your wall? Peasants, you don't? Solomon did. He hung them on his wall. Throne of ivory, overlaid with fine gold. It's just to give you an idea of just the wealth and the possessions and just the disposal he had to whatever he wanted, he could have. It was his. And he's saying, do you think that would make you content? Do you think that would satisfy you? Do you think that would give you meaning to your meaningless life? A lot more money so you can buy a lot more stuff? Solomon says again, no. No. And maybe some of you, you're not car people, you're not hammered shields on your wall people, but maybe you're into the arts. How about the arts? Verse 8, he says, I got singers, both men and women. So hear me, not only did Solomon have all the possessions, he also had all the experiences. So we have Spotify, we have iTunes, we can listen to any artist we want to at any given time, but Solomon owned the bands. So who's your favorite band? Who's your favorite artist? And imagine at your beck and call, they show up to your doorstep and give you a private performance. This was Solomon. This was the amount of power and money and influence this man had to give you on demand in your house performances. Some of you, if you're honest, young people are like, sounds awesome. That sounds awesome. I remember watching a documentary on Pablo Escobar, the famous drug lord cartel in Colombia. I was like, what are we talking about here? And he owned everything. And they caught him and they put him in prison. Guess who owned the prison? Pablo Escobar. And at one point, he had the Argentinian national soccer team come to his prison yard while he's in prison to play soccer for him so he could watch them play soccer. I mean, that's just a type of power he had. And Solomon makes that look like child's play. Whoever you want, whatever artist you wanted to paint for you, to sing for you, to make you laugh, they will come. They can't say no to you. You could summon them, and Solomon's saying, do you think that would satisfy you? Do you think that will fulfill your unfulfilled soul? Solomon says, that also, no. No. All right. It's a matter of time until Solomon got here. How about women? Verse 8, and many concubines, the delight of the sons of man. Another translation will say, I had everything a man could ever desire. He had 300 concubines, just to be specific. So think about this. Many men have a lot of fantasies. Solomon never had a fantasy. All Solomon had was reality. Could you imagine that kind of life? Like, you don't need to fantasize because it's all yours. You can make anything happen for you. 1,000 women, their one job was to look their best for you and to be available for you at all times at your beckoning call. Everything a man could desire. That's what he says. This is Hugh Hefner on steroids. He makes Hugh Hefner look like a saint. Let me ask you this, especially men. Is sex your thing? Like, is sex your thing? Sure, you don't have 1,000 women at your beckoning call, but you could look at 1,000 women at a drop of a hat on your screen. You can go to a strip club and have your way with the woman if you have enough cash. Like, is sex your thing? Like, if your sex life had zero prohibitions, zero inhibitions, zero restrictions, would that give you meaning? Would that fulfill your soul? Solomon says, I had 1,000, and the answer is no. The answer is no. Young people who aren't married hear this. You can't pursue somebody who you think you can have a great time with. You got to pursue somebody who you think you can have a great life with. Especially ladies. If he's not worthy to marry, he's not worthy to date. But this is our, if it gives you pleasure, then go for it and you shipwreck your life. This book from Solomon, it's such a great gift for all of us, but especially young people, to say, don't do it. Please, as a guy who's done it, please don't live your life the way that I live my life. It is vanity. It's such a gift to save all of us from unnecessary self-inflicted gunshot wounds. If we would just heed his caution. The Psalms, I had all the women, 1,000 to be exact, and that did not cut it. Okay, what about fame? Verse 9. So I became great, and I surpassed all who were before me in Jerusalem. I'm famous. Look at what 1 Kings 4:31-32 says about Solomon. For he was wiser than all other men. So after Jesus, he is the wisest man on planet Earth. Wiser than Ethan the Ezrahite, and Herman, and Calcol, and Darda, the sons of Mahol, and his fame was in all the surrounding areas, nations. He also spoke 3,000 proverbs, and his songs were 1,005. I mean, he was famous. Kings from all over the world will visit Solomon just to see his opulence and also for his wisdom. Like, sometimes you meet wealthy people, but they're dumb as rocks. Solomon's like, he's very wealthy and he's super wise. It's like, man, you are the best of both worlds. So if you were, hear me, be honest, if you were famous, if everybody in the world adored you, worshiped you, loved you, You're the richest and the wisest. He's saying, would that satisfy you? Would that give you the meaning in your life that you've been searching for? Solomon says, I've had it, and again, no. And hear me, Solomon was not just famous, again, for his opulence, but he was the wisest person on planet Earth. 1 Kings says that God gave Solomon great wisdom, that he was wiser than anybody else. There's a story where the Queen of Sheba visits Solomon, kind of trying to trick him because she was known to be wise as well, asked Solomon all these questions, and it says that Solomon answered all of them, and Queen of Sheba went back because she was overwhelmed at how wise this Solomon guy was. This was Solomon. So just imagine, that outside of your door at your house, there was a line of people. It was Da Vinci, Galileo, Isaac Newton, Einstein, Shakespeare, Dickens, Beethoven, Hawking, Mozart, all outside of your door, standing in line because they want to hear from you about your wisdom. He's saying, would that satisfy you? Like, would that give you the meaning that you think you will find? And Solomon says, I've had all of this, and the answer, again, is a resounding no. It's a no. He starts wrapping up this passage. Verse 10. Again, listen to these words. And some of us, most of us, all of us, we can't imagine living this kind of life. And maybe some of you, deeply, you want this kind of life. Look what it says, verse 10. Whatever my eyes desired, I did not keep from them. So just look, I want it, it's yours. I want her, she's mine. If I see it, if I want it, it's mine. Like, imagine living your life where you never have to say no, and everybody around you never says no to you either. That was Solomon's life. 30,000 plus people. Their main mission is to do whatever Solomon wants me to do. So just to give you a picture, so PNC Park holds about 38,000 people. So just imagine PNC packed, and imagine that being your staff meeting. That's Solomon. Whatever my eyes wanted, it was mine. I kept my heart from no pleasure. A guy who's indulged himself for a lifetime. For my heart found pleasure in all of my toil. I wasn't even lazy. Like, I worked. And this was my reward for all of my toil. Anything I wanted, I would take. I denied myself no pleasure. There was never a day I would have to say no. There was never a day when anybody said no to me. Everything I wanted, I did. Everything I wanted to eat, I ate. Everything I wanted to drink, I drank. And some of you, you may love your job. Like all your toil. Like you wake up in the morning, you're excited to go to work, and there's purpose in your life. Saying even that, it doesn't cut it. Like, is that enough for you? Solomon says again, no. No. And here's how he ends this section for today. Verse 11. Then I considered, I'm an old man now. So now I'm considering, I'm surveying, I'm taking inventory of my life. At all my hands had done, and the toil I had expended in doing it. And behold, it's all vanity. It's all striving after wind. There was nothing to be gained under the sun. We look at Solomon's life from outside. It seems like you've gained a ton. seems like you have acquired a ton. He's saying there was nothing to be gained. So, what's the issue here? Like, we just went through Solomon's detailed thought process of not just pleasure, but here are the specific types of pleasure I had at my disposal. I had all the great stand-up comedians at my house. I laughed a lot. I had the best wine. I had the most real estate. I had the most money. I had the most women, the most cars, the most horses. I had it all. So what's the issue that he came to this conclusion? The issue is, it's on the screen, Solomon worshiped himself. That is the issue. It was all about who? Not Jesus. It's all about Solomon. That was his life. It was all about him. We read the description. It said I cheered myself with wine. I built homes for myself. I built the national parks and gardens and vineyards for myself. I had all these people for myself, these chariots for myself. This money was for, it's all me, myself, and I. Solomon worshiped himself, and Solomon was miserable. Why? None of us are built to be the object of glory. That's the problem. That you think it is all about you. That this life revolves around you. Some of the most miserable people I've met, guess what it's about? It's about them. It's only about their issues and their problems. And they want everybody else to stop what they're doing and focus on me because you worship yourself. Solomon had this. And many of us, I think technically we can be like, it's all about me, but man, I really don't have the resources to make it about me. So I'm like, it's all about me, and I have the resources to make this life about me, and I did it, I've tried it, I've tasted it, and here's my conclusion. It's all meaningless. Because we are not built, again, to be the object of glory. Let me say this carefully. Some of you are so miserable, and the most helpful thing that you can do is stop making it about yourself. Like, you've been navel-gazing your whole life, and you've had horrible friends around you just coddling you, and just putting fuel on that fire of self. And no one has ever had the courage to say, like, it's not about you. And you not being about you is actually the best thing for you. Like I said a few weeks ago, it's not about having a vineyard or an orchard or a nice car or a nice house or a palace or eating nice foods and drinking nice wine. Those are all good things. The problem is, like Solomon has said, it became the main thing. Like, he started going to those things that he has access to try to fill that void. And again, he's realizing, no. How timely is this? A book written 3,000 years before, speaking to America in 2025. Like, Solomon is describing kind of the American dream. No. Solomon worshiped himself. Solomon was a taker. Solomon was not a giver. Solomon was a consumer. Solomon was not a producer. Solomon was miserable because Solomon, his whole life, for a lifetime, made it about himself, indulged himself, and even churches have made it this way where the church is about you and the Bible is about you because the customer is always right, not the church. It's not about you. The Bible is for you, but you're not the hero of the story. And once we make our lives, even churches, about me, then we're in trouble. We're in big trouble. Like Jesus says in Acts chapter 20, it is more blessed to give than to what? Than to receive. And hear me, they've done multiple secular studies on this, that people are happier when they give than when they receive. And they've done science, brain, dopamine, oxytocin, all these things, and they never ever want to give credit to God. Maybe what Jesus said in Acts 20 is right. Maybe God's way is still the best way, and science just confirms it. It is more blessed to give than to receive. Some of you are so miserable because, again, you've just been taking, and you're selfish, and it's about you. And you are the object of glory, and you're not built to be that way. That seat is reserved to one person. His name is King Jesus. Amen? That's it. Solomon was miserable because it was all about him, taking, receiving for him. You know who the most joyful person in the universe is? It's God. John 3:16, for God so loved the world, he gave his son. He gave. So friends, hear me. You can have a full bank account. You can have a full stocked fridge. You can have a full social calendar. You can have a full, impressive resume. You can have a full, impressive retirement account. You can have full XYZ and still have an empty, bankrupt soul. And that's my big fear for some of you, is you're religious, you're moral, and you're doing well in the world's eyes, but your soul is dead. But then there's enough whiffs of dopamine making you think that you are okay. The Bible is clear. What good is it if you gain the whole world but lose your soul? Solomon, I think, is the only person on earth that came really close to gaining the whole world. But what good is it if you lose your soul? Here's what this means. You can be the wealthiest person on planet Earth and still go to hell with the full fat banking account. You can be the healthiest person on planet Earth and go to hell with great health. And what is asinine and what is infuriating is we have people, ministries, and churches who will use God to get things from God, things they value actually more than God. Let me say that again. They will use God to get things that they value more than God. Come to Jesus, he will heal your cancer. Come to Jesus, he will fill up your bank account. Hear me, do we believe Jesus can heal cancer on this side? Yes. Do we pray for that? Yes. Have people been healed of that? Yes. Have people who love Jesus had cancer and died on this side? Yes. Will they be healed on the other side? Everybody? Yes. Does God provide? Yes. But we don't build an entire theological church framework on that. That's the issue. We believe Jesus heals, he provides. But we will never build our church around that framework. It's so frustrating because it hurts good people to use God, to get things from God that you value more than God. You can gain the whole world, but lose your soul. I say this often, the worst thing for you is not dying. It's you dying without having a relationship with the one who lives, not under the sun, who lives above the sun, Jesus. And that's a travesty. I've been at multiple deathbeds I've done multiple funerals, and one thing remains the same across the board, especially those at their deathbed. I've been at 5 of them. And to this day, I have never met somebody that said, Pastor Frank, can you go to the office and can you print out my bank statement one more time? Because I just want to look at it and bask in it. Pastor Frank, can you get the scale from the bathroom? Because I just want to check if I lost those 10 pounds I was wanting to lose. Can you get all of my certificates and my trophies? Because I want to bask in my glory. I've yet to see that at someone's deathbed. And there's a reason for that. It's all Hebel, Hebel, Hebel. That you can have everything without God, you have nothing. You can have nothing with God, you have everything. That's what Paul had to know. That's the only reason how you can get shipwrecked, left for dead, bitten by a snake, in prison again, and still just move forward to plant churches for his glory. Because Paul knew, I can have everything without God. I have nothing. I can have nothing, but I have God. I have everything. That a meaningful life, friends, hear me, has a lot more to do with your internal life than your external stuff. Nothing wrong with stuff, but those stuff needs to be put in their proper place. That your meaning, hear me, and you being fulfilled comes by you being and not by you having. Comes by you being and not by you having. That what's more important is who you are in relation to God rather than you having all these little G gods in your life that you're trying to find fulfillment in. Let me say it this way. God created us to worship Him, to love people, and to use stuff. America says, love self, use people, and worship stuff. It's been completely inverted. You worship Jesus, and you love people, and the stuff that you have, you use to love people and worship Jesus. But what the culture blares at you through marketing, through TV shows, through everything, is no, you love yourself because it's about you and your pleasure. You use people because you worship stuff. If you have to use people to get more stuff so you can love yourself, go for it. See how twisted that is? Is pleasure wrong? No. Pleasure is good. Like we can enjoy the gifts that the Lord has given us to enjoy. There's a pastor, Pastor Chris told me about him, Pastor Douglas Wilson, and he talks about this book, and he talks about canned peaches. Okay, don't check out. I know it's weird. Just lean in. He said, those who are living their life under the sun, like Solomon, they have 100,000 canned peaches. They have acquired. And for us who live above the sun, looking at Jesus, we may only have 5 canned peaches. So it looks like this guy has a lot more stuff. He has 100,000 canned peaches. I only have 5, but here's the kicker. Only we have the can opener. Isn't that awesome? Like when you live under the sun, you have all these things, but you can't find joy in it because you're putting those things in the wrong place and you're going for meaning and it never gives you meaning. You're going for satisfaction. It never gives it to you. But we as Christians who look to the one above the sun, living under the sun, to give us that pleasure and that fulfillment to worship him, to love people, to use stuff. Though we have 5 cans, we have the can opener that we as Christians can even enjoy and find meaning in the meaningless pleasures of life. Amen. Does that make sense? We have the can opener so we can enjoy properly the sunset. That's amazing. The sunrise, the great wine that pairs with that steak. We can enjoy that because we have the can opener. But if you live your life just under the sun like Solomon did, then what you come to is this conclusion of Hebel, meaningless, because I put these things as an end of themselves, and I'm realizing at 85, what a gift this book is for us. Amen. Thank you, Solomon, for not being selfish with your wisdom, but sharing it with us, that 3,000 years later, we can still glean from this book in a very timely, relevant way. We can enjoy the gifts as we worship the giver of those gifts. Let me end with this. 1 Timothy 6:6. Ben, you can come up now. He says, but godliness with what? Godliness with contentment is great gain. Here's my question to end this message. Are you content? Not, do you have this? Do you have enough? The question is, are you content? And the concern is some of you are not content. You're deep inside, you're wanting and you're coveting the life that Solomon has. And you're not going to heed Solomon's warning. You'll just say, let me just experience it for myself. A smart man learns from their own mistakes. A wise man learns from the mistakes of others. And Solomon's giving just an unedited autobiography of here's all I did wrong. Are you content? And if you're not content, may I humbly submit to you, the issue is probably not your external stuff or lack of, it's probably your internal soul. I mean, Solomon right here, he is proof, case study of that. It's the soul. Are you content? Right? Paul says in Philippians, I've learned what it feels like to have a lot of things. I've learned what it feels like to have nothing, but I've learned through all of that, I'm content. Like you're good. And you pray for things and you pursue things and you enjoy things, but like you are content. Hear me, you can buy a lot of things with great wealth. We can all agree. But there's one thing you cannot buy: contentment. Solomon, again, is a case study of that. Case in point, you cannot purchase contentment. Contentment is about here and who you are in relation to Him, not all this stuff. The reality is, for many of you, you're not content, and your whole life has been searching from thing to thing, from person to person, from XYZ to fill in that contentment void. Well, you'll finally be like, I'm so grateful for Solomon. My prayer for myself and for all of us is that we would have a spirit of contentment. What has He already given you? How has He already provided for you? Or is it really about you? And God exists for your glory. He exists to give you what you want. You're going to be like Solomon. You're going to be miserable and confused. So you come to this realization that took Solomon his whole life. Oh, it's because I've been living my whole life without God. Disconnected, under the sun. Maybe that's the issue, and I'm here to tell you, friends, that is the issue. I'm going to pray, and then we are going to sing to the one who lives above the sun.